Hello, everyone. So, are you asking questions like, is there more to life? Why am I here? What am I here to learn and experience? What's this all about? What's this talk about ascension? If so, then boy, do I have a treat for you today. My special guest is Isabelle Zimmerman. She's an ascension teacher, a spiritual hypnotherapist or QHHT therapist, trained by Dolores Cannon, no less. I will drop links to everything in the description below. And today we're here to talk about ascension, awakening, how that links in with things like channeling and many, many other topics. So hello, Isabelle, and welcome. And thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, James. I am so excited to be here and just, recording our conversation in this time now space. Because as you ascend, you know this, it starts to pick up.
Yeah. Gains momentum big time.
Really does. And we'll look back and be like, hey, remember when you came on my channel? Be like, yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for joining me today. So I guess a good place to start is, what in your world, what is ascension? What is awakening? What's this all about?
I remember, I would have to say, I didn't even know about the ascension. My first awareness-ish was really channeling. I didn't know about channelers. I didn't know about Esther Hicks. I didn't know about Abraham. I literally, I used to commute about 45 minutes each way to work, and I just was a podcast junkie. I just listened to a variety of podcasts, and it was suggested for me to listen to Roberta Grime. I went to a chiropractor because I couldn't walk. I had plantar fasciitis. And he's like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm writing a young adult novel around fairies and black holes. And I said, yeah, I studied quantum physics, and I realized quantum physics was such a passion of mine, and I had studied it for about 6 years. And he's like, oh, that's interesting. Quantum physics and fairies? And I said, yeah, I'm a fantasy girl. And he's like, oh, you should listen to Roberta Grimes. She's this lawyer in Arizona. She studies the after death. And I said, oh, okay. And I had already understood that energy could not be destroyed. So for me, I always believed in, it didn't make sense when somebody said that we died and we were just carbon. I was just like, wait, everything recycles. Like the sun before us was a supernova. That's recycled. This planet's recycled. Everything recycles. Everything has a cycle. Like, what? I can't imagine we're the anomaly. So I believed in a soul and I believed in reincarnation, but that's it. Like there was no connectivity of like how it impacted my life. It's like, oh, okay, I'll be born again, but I won't remember that life. Or, oh, I lived before, but maybe that's what deja vu is. But again, it didn't have an impact in my life. So when I started to listen to Roberta Grimes, I went through her 80 podcasts. And right before her show, they said Law of Attraction Radio. And I'm like, Law of Attraction Radio. And I'm like, wait a second. I think I had heard that book called The Secret.
Yeah.
And I think they mentioned Law of Attraction. So again, I'm not putting it together. I'm just kind of going on with the journey. And I'm like, oh, okay. Then I found this podcast called The Joshua Teachings. And he was reading, there was a question and he was reading his channeled answer. And then I heard about channeling. And I went, whoa, what's channeling? So now it's funny. So Spirit was talking to me about this podcast that we were, or Zoom call that we're doing, Spirit said, you know, a lot of humans, and I too had separated my inner being from me. Like, even though I knew there was different levels of consciousness, but there really is no separation. And so your psychic abilities is just you reaching your soul abilities.
Yeah.
And in fact, we've always had these abilities. We've always had the ability to be telepathic. In fact, we are telepathic. It's just that we're not aware of it. But a lot of us will get a gut instinct, like walking into a room or, you know, feeling something's off. Obviously, you know, police officers and soldiers and even mothers, it is true. Moms will know if their kid is sick. I don't know how we know. Well, now I do, because it's coming from my inner being, but, and the field. But I remember thinking, like, wait, there is this sixth sense, right? So then there's all these movies and there's all these preconceived ideas of like, who's a psychic, what's a psychic, what power ability you have, telekinesis. And then, you know, I really love Stranger Things on Netflix.
Yeah.
Because Al, or 11, when she puts on that blindfold, that's a think tank. That's going into the tank. So your psychic sense is heightened, you know? And I mean, she has telekinesis abilities, right? She was also trained at a very young age to see it. She saw other children with abilities. So her belief was right there.
Yeah, exactly.
So for you and for us to embrace our soul abilities, we literally have to open up our minds. And what's really interesting is a lot of people are afraid of the woo-woo, right? And it kind of, I understand, and it kind of cracks me up because it's really the unknown, but it's the unknown of you. You are just becoming connected to you, your soul, your multidimensional self. Now, I'm 5 years, 6 years into it now, and there's no fear for me in connecting with my soul, but there was fear around my power. So I would say to anyone listening, don't worry about it. You know, like, it is a process. It's a process for us all. There's phases and stages, but it is moving into more one. It is moving into more love. In order for you to be connected to your soul, you really need to vibrate at a higher frequency in love. And a lot of people will say, well, what about dark magic? And what about, you know, that other contrast of it? So we saw it in the movie Star Wars, Darth Vader, right? Embracing the power of the non-physical, the force. And so what I would say to everyone is, you can, if you choose to embrace it, but it will never be as powerful as love. Because you're doing it out of a level of fear, and you're doing it out of a level of control, and it is sanctioned by your inner being.
Yes, yeah. It's like there's like a natural order to things, and a natural level above which you can't go if you're not coming from that pure place within your heart, right? So it's like there's a natural protection, natural barrier in the universe.
There really is.
Mhm.
There really is. Now, because I work with so many teachers, we will come across some lives where they practice rituals. Not a lot, not a ton. Most of the people that come to me, they were killed being for a witch, and so their fear around sharing their knowledge in this incarnation, they bump up against that. But this is not the life for us to be persecuted. This is not the life for us to explore that other frequency. The ascension. So I learned about channeling and I was interested in it. And then I did a one-on-one program. And I remember doing the one-on-one program. It was $600 a month. And I thought, oh my gosh, how am I going to afford that? There's no way I'm going to be able to afford that. But the pull was so strong that I did it. I was just like, I don't know where the money's going to come from. I certainly do not have it. I cannot see a path for it to arrive. But I just knew I had to do this for me. And I started the program like on April 12th. And by May 8th, I was channeling myself. And the first entity I channeled was Goddess Isis.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask you who your main team are.
Yeah, Goddess Isis. And I wouldn't allow any other entities. They came knocking at my door, but I only wanted to talk to Goddess Isis. And it was Thoth that was persistent. And he literally sent me love songs everywhere I went. I would wake up. My daughter was watching a video, love song in the background. I'd go downstairs, get a cup of coffee, commercial, love song. I'd go into my car, love song. I go to the grocery store, love song. And it was relentless for 3 weeks because I was a little stubborn. And I felt him, and I still feel him with like a pressure point here. And I finally relented and I said, okay, Thoth. I said, you can come in. And then after Thoth, that was it. The door was open. Then I was like channeling archangels and ETs and you name it. And now I no longer, I remember when Thor came to me and I heard Old Norse God. And I'm like, Old Norse God. And then I got Thor and I'm like, oh my gosh, like what? And so like all myths, I will tell you, fairies are very real, archangels are very real, dragons are real. Again, I'm 6 years into this. And
I
so
can definitely attest to dragons because I obviously I think I told you I train with the guy called Brian, and some dragon energy came through to me the last time I was with him, and that blew me away. Yeah.
yeah. And then
Something.
I remember a couple of my dragon lives.
Mhm.
And Thoth is working with me to bring in my consciousness of a dragon in my physical body as Isabelle.
Right.
And so Thoth is so funny. Thoth is like, because he trained Goddess Isis.
Okay.
He was her mentor and taught her magic. And what's funny recently, so I do hypnosis, I do QHHT, we go into soul fields. I find my passion is whether it's, James and I met, he took my 21 module course. And and before we got on this call, I said, oh, remember, James, you were like a little cautious around the woo-woo,
Yep.
and now look at you. And so we looked it up and it was February of 2021.
Mm.
And now he's like astral traveling and connected to ETs and just
Only
like
like 2 years, which is nothing really, is it?
nothing.
Yeah.
And now you're like, wow, like so awesome. It's like Luke Skywalker has nothing on you, James.
Yeah, no, it's in quite a journey, and I guess you know, that you can't come back from this sort of thing, you know, once the ball's rolling.
Yeah, and I was telling James, I said, wow, I can't believe I've only met you 2 years, because like James and I, we're close, you know, we're really close. And um it's fuzzy for me to even think of James not in my life. Like, that's how fuzzy it is. Like, what? He hasn't been in my life my whole entire life? Like, what?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, so weird. And James and I have not physically met yet,
No.
but it doesn't feel like that. Like, you
Well,
know, it's
I'm sure we're soul family.
I'm totally,
Yeah.
totally, totally, totally. But anyways, I do remember James being cautious around the woo-woo. And I think a lot of people are. I think they're very concerned about it. And just know, everyone, there's just the stories we heard, um, please take them with a grain of salt. Like, investigate yourself, you know, just trust and love. Trust that you have an inner being. I like one of the things, so I'm very passionate about this. Like, whether it's a course, whether it's a book, whether it's a video, a session, I'm always talking about you have an inner being, because it is not discussed. It is mentioned in the Bible and the Torah. I mean, it is mentioned in all of the organized religions. I don't know about the minor ones, by the way. I only whatever I studied in college. That's all I know, guys. But you can search it, whatever religion you are, and type in the word inner being or higher self, and it is there. And in Catholicism, they called it the Holy Spirit. But it's your inner being. It's your inner being. And we all have an inner being. You cannot not have it. The design of source. So this is funny, James. Okay. So you have an inner being that has an inner being that has an inner being that's an inner being. And one of my inner beings is the Ascension Keeper, hence why I'm an Ascension teacher playing this role. But anyways, so I'm talking to Source, and I'm like, Source is like, Isabelle, we want you to understand more about the inner beings. And I said, oh, okay. Because I knew our inner beings like guided us and created our realities and has access to all our lives and all potentialities and whatnot. But Source is like, I ensured that you will never be alone. And so when you separated from me, there was always a thread back to me, no matter where you are in consciousness.
Yeah.
And
We are
so,
within it, aren't we? We are within our large multidimensional self.
yes. And that thread, because we are in our consciousness, we are projected consciousness, but there's always a pathway back to source. And so, knowing that we have many inner beings, knowing that we have an oversoul, because now they're working with me on understanding oversouls. We are so loved and protected. And I had heard those words from Spirit, but understanding the design of it, because that's what I love, is it's a fail-safe. I'm like, Source created a redundant system so that we would never get lost. I'm not saying we don't feel lost. I'm just saying we never get lost.
Never truly are.
We never truly are. We are always, always connected to our inner being that has an inner being that has an inner being, all the way back to source consciousness.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the 3D sort of paradigm was really about the exploration of the illusion through the illusion of separation. So it's like, although you are always connected, in fact, you're so connected that you could create the illusion of being not connected at all and feeling like you're on your own in this duality, experience. But actually,
Yes.
in order to have that, you need to have that connection,
Yes. And so sharing that we are connected to your inner being and that you have an inner being and accessing your inner being, you're already connected to your inner being. You're just not aware. And so to facilitate that awareness, to rise up from the ego mind or the conditioned mind.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's conditioned. It is the beliefs that were taught to us and reinforced by society and education and family and through
All the
experiences,
programs, all the mental programs that we've
all the
grown up
mental
with.
programs.
Yeah.
Right. You have to be a very strong soul to be here. You have to have enough soul field experience to be here. And then especially during the ascension. So, I've done 1,000 sessions of hypnosis and going into multiple lives. What I can say to you is when you hear from spirit, nothing is random. It's true. It's really true.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling, but it's true. And there are mechanisms in play. Sometimes our inner being will just allow law of attraction to have us be in the flow of the universe as we float down the river. And other times our inner being for sure comes in and moves us, or our spirit guides, but we are lovingly supported by so many mechanisms. And so the illusion of loss of life or loss of love it was desired. And so when I started channeling Isis, she would say, your unwanted is wanted. Your unwanted is desired. And I remember being really mad.
Do you
Like, I
mean
would
to
be
say
like,
that the things that you don't want in your life as a human, coming from the egoic perspective, is actually
yeah,
desired experientially from the higher being? Right.
yes. And I was just like,
Mm.
no, that's crap. There's no way I would choose that. There's no way I would create that. Right. And now understanding with greater clarity, I would never take away any of my pain. Not 1 second, not one moment, not one experience, all of it.
So would you say that a lot of the good work, as we so call it, these days, is to start to sort of obviously work to understand what the belief systems that underpin your thought processes are, but also to start to reframe things and start changing your definitions, reframing how you see your experiences in life, because all that inner work will then in due course start reflecting back to you from the external world.
Yes. So once I knew there was channelers, I started understanding that there was higher consciousness. What is consciousness? I had already had the background of quantum science. So I understood particles in particle physics. Particle physics is just a study of light and energy.
As it presents in our system of reality, I guess.
Yes. Right?
Yeah.
So they didn't link consciousness with particle physics, but they could see the behavior of light. And so I started on many threads at once, but I started to go backwards in the understanding of science of humanity. And Michael Faraday, if you guys are listening and you're not channeling yet or connected and you're curious, look up Michael Faraday's life and work, because he understood electromagnetism. He saw magnetism and electricity, and then he realized it was one and the same in a perpendicular configuration. When he took a magnet and a coil and he moved it down this coil, and there's a lot of great talks around it, but anyways, he saw lightning. He realized that's what lightning was two electromagnetic fields hitting, colliding, and it emitted light. So then he understood electricity and magnetism. That has helped me so much spiritually, I can't tell you. Understanding that 90-degree perpendicular, because in ancient Egypt, they talked about the 90 degrees. Sacred geometry talks about the 90 degrees. And I'm like, what is up with these 90 degrees? But it's a visual representation of what is happening during your ascension. So for me, I study science to understand the metaphysical, and the metaphysical to understand the science, because for me, it's one and the same. And I'm not the only human who's beginning to understand this. And, you know, what's interesting, Spirit wanted me to write an article around hypnosis. And so I was going into some government sites to pull where humanity is and their understanding. And it's really funny, but it was Goddess Isis who told me that I needed to take QHHT. And I said, how much is this going to cost me and how much time? Like what, you know? And so I did, I got trained in it. And I come to find out just recently that Goddess Isis, her temple was considered a sleep temple. She would hypnotize her students to connect with spirit. Okay. So they were using hypnosis to connect with their inner being. And I'm like, of course, because like when I went and I took the class, I was already channeling then, but everyone was like, oh my gosh, Isabelle, you're so natural at this. Like, are you sure you've never done this before? And I'm like, no, but Isis is in my soul field. I'm her granddaughter. Her energy is my energy. And I'm like, huh. So now I even feel closer to Isis because I'm doing the same work as incarnated as Isabelle, as she did when she was on this earth. So I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool.
And I should say at this point that like all connections we have with so-called other beings all goes through our sort of higher self, doesn't it? Or our inner being, as it were.
Yes. Yes.
It's like it's the telephone exchange, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. And I love, you know, my main excitement is connecting people to their inner being and getting them to channel. Like, I feel like having them aware or channeling and receiving downloads is like, for me, that's bare minimum. Like, what do we need to get you there? Let's get you there, and let's start meditating. Let's start journaling. Let's, you know, however we need to get you there, let's get you there. Because once you're connected to your inner being, well, now you can hold your own baby bottle.
Yeah.
You know, now you can be way more self-sustaining, and you're going to blossom really quick, and you're going to ignite other sleeping children. So that that is a driving force. And now my other driving force is, okay, you're awake, you know who you are now, at least a little bit more, you know your abilities, you know your gifts. All right, get out there and start teaching. Like, what are you doing? Right? Like, come on, you are a master. You know, you're not a newbie at this. We've waited many lives to ascend in our bodies. We have a tremendous amount of soul experience in the soul field. Like, let's do it. Like, let's build the school. Let's get out there. Let's teach. Let's have classes. Let's have workshops and really hone in our soul field experience and ignite each other, because I know where we're heading, because I get a lot of downloads. I'm a clairvoyant. It has taken me some acceptance around seeing the future. It's a little weird, to be honest with you. It is just a potentiality, but Isis is always in my ear. I am never attached to what I see. And when I do become attached to what I see, it doesn't come to fruition. So now I am like really loosey-goosey with it. And I'm like, yep, thank you. Thank you for the vision. And that's it. That's how I look at it. Because when it does not come to fruition, that attachment is so painful that I'm like, nope, if it comes to fruition, great. If it doesn't, great. I'm great no matter what. Thank you very much.
Yeah. You touched upon a really important aspect there, and we could do another podcast or video all about that. But it's like, a lot of thought out there at the moment, a lot of information coming in from different channels as well, is that it is not one line from past to future. There are infinite potentialities, and obviously depending on where you are within yourself, your own vibration, and whether you're following your joy or not, doing the inner work or not, those sorts of things will determine the direction in which you go, as will also, keep really following that joy, but not being, as Isabelle is saying, insistent on the outcome. Because if you're like, I must have a green car, then you're going to be waiting longer. There might be even nicer cars coming your way more quickly, but you'll be letting them pass by. You won't be on the frequency. So it's about following that joy without any expectation of, what's going to come back, but just doing it because it's your highest excitement, and being open, and also trusting your inner being, because whatever it comes into your life is ultimately at the very base level for your highest good, for your development, for your progression. So even if it feels uncomfortable, the invitation is then to explore that. Why does it feel uncomfortable? Maybe there's a belief system that I can look at or change that will accelerate me even more. But that wouldn't happen without you really being willing to, to look inside yourself and explore.
Yeah. There has been a lot of seers or clairvoyant humans throughout our history. I think Macbeth had some seers, right?
Yeah.
And fortune telling, right? We are fascinated with the future. What does the future hold, right? And so to see the future and allow it to be as is, as seeing it as a TV show or a potentiality, it's okay. But I would tell you, James, personally, as Isabelle, it took me maybe 3 or 4 years to really soften my visions. They threw me for a loop. I found out my mom was clairvoyant and she turned off her ability because she got so scared.
Oh, right.
I can understand that fear. I am not afraid of the visions anymore. And I did ask them to turn it off for a little bit. I said, look, I'm going to go through an integration period, and I just let me be blind. Just let me be blind for a little bit. Like, I don't want to see. I can't handle it. I can't handle it.
But for me, that's been quite a natural process. I find that it's like a cycle, really. I go through times of the month where a lot of the senses kind of shut down. I'm like, okay, it's that time again. I've got to go do some inside, inner work integration. And then sure enough, a week or so later, the doors will open again and off I go. So it does seem to be quite cyclical for me.
Yeah. So just interestingly enough, I didn't channel, I actually wrote in my journal as Isabelle, but I said, I'm going through an integration period right now. And yesterday, James and I spoke, and I was telling him how I felt sad and lonely. And today, I don't feel sad and lonely. I feel so grateful, so enjoying my own energy, so happy that I am alone right now, that I can just be in my energy and just play with myself as is right now. And I'm savoring it. So it's interesting, just one sleep, how I wake up the next day and I could feel totally different.
Yeah.
I knew, because I had done shadow work around being sad and lonely. They've been showing me some scenes from my childhood. So I like cried and leaned into it. And but now I'm going through my integration phase. And I have been aware of my integration phases. So you're talking about the cycle. There is a cycle. I believe that it's like you learn a theory, or you learn the concept, or you remember something, a remembrance or a knowing, and then you get tested in it. And then you have to integrate in it, meaning you respond in a new manner from your higher perspective.
Yeah.
And there is an integration period. So it's like after you take your test, what I call after you take your test, there is this integration period where it's kind of quiet, because things are just recalibrating within your field and within your body and heart and all that. I've called this integration period the void. I have felt it very wonky, in the sense that I've got one foot in the old and one foot in the new dimension, and I'm in that in-between space, and it's wonky. Like, I can't explain it other than it feels like a void, or I'm on a bridge. I can see the old life of mine and I'm going to the new location, but I'm on the bridge, right? And so in that void or the bridge, I would want to know when it was going to be over.
Yeah.
When am I going to get off the bridge?
Yeah.
I want to go into the new dimension. I know not to make any choices while you're on the bridge. When you're on the bridge, you're on the bridge, you're in the void, you're in the void. Just let it be. Do not make any decisions. You just be in that moment, because you're integrating a lot. But this time, without thought, I'm enjoying being on the bridge. I'm enjoying my integration period. I'm enjoying it like when Madeline, my daughter, was a baby. There was times in my life that I knew it was fleeting. And so I'm enjoying my integration period right now on my journey of ascension, because it's the journey that's the sweetness.
Yeah.
It's not the destination. And I know that, but it doesn't mean I always feel that, because I am like a child that knows Christmas is tomorrow morning. And I really am excited to open up my gifts.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people kind of feel like come on, we want this new world, you know.
Yeah, but the journey is the sweetness. And I know this, but that doesn't mean I'm not like that little kid. Like, I just want to open up a present, like, do I really have to wait till tomorrow morning? Can't I open up one tonight? you know? So enjoying this integration period for me, it's my first one that I'm enjoying without thought, not because I would say when you first start Awaken, you hear gratitude and appreciation, like you should have a gratitude and appreciation journal, or you should meditate. And so what I would say is, and I've talked to spirit around this a lot, but whatever form your meditation is, whether that's fishing, hiking, but I do believe at one point you will need to sit down and be still to go within. Because all ascended masters meditated. Yeshua did, Saint Germain, Buddha, they all meditated. Isn't that curious? Sure, you could do chants, you can do mantras, but I do believe meditation is one of those musts, because you have to go within.
Yeah, you got to get into that still space, because
You
that's what
do.
allows the programs to quieten down and that higher energy to then come in, which changes your whole perception and raises your vibration. So you start then experientially traveling as well.
Yeah. I remember being very resistant to meditating, and now it's funny, I teach meditation. Like, it's funny, I actually got certified in it, and I'm like, oh gosh, the ironies of life. But there's nothing to fear around meditating. I think part of the fear around meditating was really the unknown, was like, am I going to get in touch with spirit? I was concerned about at that time of my belief, I believed in evil, but I know there is no evil now. But that was my perception, was, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing, so I don't want to open up the door. Like, I don't know how to play with fire, so I'm not going to play with fire. And that fear, that resistance, I understand where that came from a story told to me around my fear was, I knew there was bad humans. Like, there are some humans that are really mean and destructive. And there are some beautiful, giving, loving humans. So for me, my logic mind was, well, if there's beautiful spirits, there are not so beautiful spirits. And so I don't want, how am I going to fight something that I can't see?
Yeah.
That was my fear. How am I going to fight something that I can't see? I just want to let you know, guys, it's not true, because I didn't know about the inner being. I didn't know I was going to be protected. I didn't know the design of the system. I thought I was alone and encountering a darker entity alone as Isabelle was so scary. And I think if someone had told me that, no, you are protected, you have an inner being, it's okay, it's just breath, go into your heart, you're going to be in the love frequency, I was like, oh. And even like when I come across new students, I'll just say, ask to connect with beings of light. Like, you can set your intention to go into that love frequency, set forth your intention, and you will only connect with the light beings. There's no
Intention is,
trickery.
yeah,
Yes, there's no trickery. Someone's like, oh, well, how do you know? And I'm like, because when you set your intention for love, that's a command. You have the power.
Yeah, this is exactly it. We are creator beings. That's the key thing to learn here. And one can have experiences with lower forms of entities, but it firstly comes from the resonance that you're at, which is why intention setting and heart work and breath work and everything else like that is so important. And if you have some sort of bad experience, oftentimes that is offering you a key to something that you can transform within yourself. But to your point earlier, Isabelle, as you said, that there is no evil, and that's at a fundamental level. It doesn't mean that we can't create the illusion of it, or it can be very real to the human perspective in the human life, right? But at the higher fundamental level, it's a construct of the human consciousness in the terms that we're talking about it right now.
Yes. And so just know there really is nothing to fear. You can set your intention. Your inner being is always with you. You are your inner being. Don't be afraid of hypnosis. Don't be afraid of meditation, because you are missing out on who you are and your love and your beautiful light. And if I could give advice to that younger version of myself afraid of the meditation, I would just say, silly girl, you're just afraid of breath. Silly girl, you're just afraid of your own love. Silly girl, it's okay. You are a being of light and magnificent light. And those souls that experience the denser frequency, that's all it is. It's just denser frequency. It is not evil. There is no evil. It is just frequency of vibration, of separation.
Yeah.
That's all it is. You're eternal. No one dies. You feel the loss of life in this incarnation, but you're eternal. Your projected consciousness. Go to the Wizard of Oz. Go see Alice in Wonderland. Go see the magic. Yes, it might be scary at first, but it is so worth it. Yeah. You're pushing away so much more than you can ever imagine. It is the key to unlock your awakening.
And there's no better journey, is there, than finding out more of who you truly are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, look, I think we will bring this part one to a close now. There's so much more I want to go into with you, Isabelle, especially a deep dive on QHHT.
Yeah.
We'll do that in part two. So thank you guys for watching. And of course, if you like and subscribe, feel free. And if you have any questions, drop them down in the comments below. So I'll see you again next time.